We're now live, Chair.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the meeting of Calderdale Council's Standards Committee. Particular welcome as this is the first meeting following the annual meeting, so the deck chairs may have changed slightly. And a particular welcome if this is the first time of you serving on the Standards Committee. Apologies for absence.
Jane.
Yeah. Scullion.
Evening, Chair. Yeah, we have Councillor Scullion and Kathy Beavers have both given their apologies.
All right, Kathy. Yeah, okay. Thank you very much. If at this stage there are any members' interests you wish to declare or during the meeting, please do so. And if you have any questions regarding interests, please feel confident that if you have any doubts, simply to ask Ian Hughes' advice at any stage during the meeting. We're very happy to welcome members of the public to this meeting should they wish to attend. There are no items I'm aware of which need not be held in public. We move swiftly to item 4, which is minutes of the Standards Committee held on the 12th of January to be agreed as a correct record. Now, presumably, only those of us who were present at that meeting are able to affirm that they were correct. I believe they to be so.
Yeah,
others who were present? Megan, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. And matters arising from those minutes. Ian, are you able to update us on the investigation into allowances, please?
Yes, Chair, I can, and my apologies for not getting back to you, I think, in your response to an email. It is underway. It's been slightly complicated by the fact that we are now going to be subject to a local government Boundary Commission for England review of the electoral situation, electoral position within the borough. That won't prevent the review taking place because it needs to happen, but there needs to be some coordination with that because of the initial submission that needs to be made by March of next year. I met with the Chief Exec for the Boundary Commission last week, and there are 3 things that need to be initially submitted to the Boundary Commission. One is the forecast of the electorate, which doesn't affect the independent review. That's the anticipated number of electors that we'll have in 2029, just to make sure that there's some future-proofed element to the Boundary Commission's work. The second element will affect it, and that's the size of the council. The Boundary Commission will invite the council to submit a number for the councillors that we consider to be appropriate for the borough. Doesn't have to be the current 51, but we have to be able to submit and justify that, taking into account the delivery of democracy within the borough. That's the most important thing. It isn't a submission that the Boundary Commission will entertain on financial grounds, although there will be some element of that, but it's not the overriding factor. So that inevitably will then impact upon the review panel's findings, subject to obviously there being a reduction in number or an increase in number in members. The third thing, just for completeness, is a view on the electoral cycle. That's the frequency within which we hold elections. That's either to retain the 1/3 election process that we currently have with a fallow year, or to move to all-out elections once every 4 years. The Boundary Commission doesn't hold a view on that, and it will react to submissions that are made, evidenced, again, factoring on and focusing on the delivery of democracy. So to go back to the size of the council, then that is going to play into the review panel. I've made inquiries with my neighbouring heads of service, heads of legal across West Yorkshire. We've got another meeting on Friday of this week around sharing independent review panels. I've had some indications from Wakefield that we can share their chair. So I'll be looking probably over the late part of the summer, early autumn to bring that review panel to meet with a view to picking up an understanding of the current situation within Calderdale and what then needs to be anticipated going forward. And it will probably then look to have any increase or decrease in members' allowances factored into the start of the new municipal year in May of 2023, informed in some part by what is then submitted. And just for members on this this standards board, there will be a full council briefing of this, again, probably towards the back end of the summer. There's a series of meetings I need to have with leaders and group leaders in the lead up to that, and then a consultation process that's underway. So all of that will dovetail with the independent review panel. Does that help, Chair?
Yeah, Ian, can I just ask before I open it up to the floor, in terms of timetable, because clearly if there was to be any increase in allowances, you would want to build that into the budget for next year. And so therefore a decision needs to be made by the council to enable that to happen so that there is a smooth transition. Yeah,
absolutely agreed, and correct to point that out. That's why I'm referring to the new municipal year for its implementation. But you're right that we would look to have this dealt with by this committee middle of the autumn at the latest, and for it then to be reported through to Budget Council the back end of February.
Okay, so thank you very much, Ian. So open the floor now for others to comment or to ask questions, please. Val.
On mute. Oh.
Okay, right. Yes, thank you. The mute on this particular laptop is all over the shop. But anyway, well, thank you for that, Ian. Are you saying that you'd expect this review to be completed by September?
Probably a little bit later than that, but not far away from September. I'd think more like probably November.
Yeah, because as I understand it, the Boundary Commission element of this has been known for quite some time now, on the basis that the Boundary Commission continually reviews this, and so these recommendations about the boundary potential and the process has been around for quite some time, hasn't it?
Yeah, we only met with the chief executive, myself, our chief executive, on I think it was Thursday of last week, and got this timetable for the first time during that meeting. We knew that there was a review that was going to be implemented, but the first meeting that we had as part of that, the Boundary Commission contacted ourselves and a number of other West Yorkshire authorities, Wakefield and Kirklees being, I think, the other two. And whilst we had an indication that we were going to be reviewed, the process hadn't started until, as I said, last Thursday, when the information that I've given you, we've been asked to have that ready for submission by March 2023 at the latest. So yes, you're right. There is a process to be undertaken, but the timetabling of that, and we've now been given the named officer from the Boundary Commission to work with us. That's Colin Mellon, and that will then be picked up as part of the next round of meetings that we'll have during the summer.
What you were saying about the size of the council or not, obviously the population will stay the same, because that's the whole purpose of the Boundary Commission, to ensure that these things stay within certain population parameters. But in relation to the size of the council, and you said that the government doesn't have a view one way or another about the electoral cycle. other than saying that they'd like councils to look at the size, is there any indication whatsoever as to what they're looking at? Because I wouldn't have, personally, having sat on the council of 96, I wouldn't have thought that 51 was particularly high, and the requirement would only be probably a factor of probably about 5 either way, I would have thought. At 6 either way, it'd have to be 6, wouldn't it? Would be 6 either way. I mean, I'm just just in the nature of this exercise. Plus, you mentioned democracy and the smaller number of councils that you have. It does reduce the element of democratic accountability as well. But you know,
you're absolutely right. I mean,
who knows what the Boundary Commission or whatever, what the government are thinking on this particular issue?
Well, we do know what the Boundary Commission thinks because it gives very clear guidance as to how it assesses the submissions that are sent to it. And there are 3 areas: that strategic leadership, and basically they look at has the requirement for strategic leadership changed because of the governance model that we implement or the approach that's taken by the council, which broadly speaking is unlikely to be any changed position on that because we've had a cabinet system for some considerable time. Accountability, so again, does the structure of our regulatory and scrutiny process differ from what we've had throughout the last 15, 20 years? And again, that's not the case. And then community leadership, which is the main focus that I think the Boundary Commission will look at, and how do members best serve the communities that they represent. And that will take into account numbers. Population growth will play a part in that. And obviously we need to project how the borough is going to grow, taking into account local plan issues, etc., where our increased housing will be placed. So all of that will factor in. But I think you're right, Councillor Stevens, that there won't be a dramatic change in numbers. I think that's the case. And the Boundary Commission will not want to dilute or diminish the delivery of democracy within the borough. And it will, I think, also be informed by whether we are retaining the 1/3 election cycle, and therefore any number that we come up with will have to be divisible by 3. And then obviously you factor in the very different political profile that we have across the borough, electoral profile, where we have some very rural wards, but some very densely populated wards in the townships, etc. So that's already been mentioned by the Chief Exec as being a unique position within Calderdale that would need to be very carefully considered to ensure that we deliver it properly.
Howard, did you want to come in?
Yeah, I was just going to clarify actually, because I think Councillor Stevens, just for clarification, there's a parliamentary review taking place, as which it speaks as well, which has no bearing on this.
No.
But it's clearly. So one of the questions I do have: will members have the opportunity to attend an inquiry? Is it like an inquiry system where you can submit, any comments, shall we say, or views?
What is proposed, Councillor, is that the council submission on council size is one that we are encouraged to submit as a council submission. What the Boundary Commission said that they would expect us to do on that is to put that out to consultation. So that will take place sometime probably in the autumn again. The responses to that submission, we're encouraged to have either political groups respond, MPs, parish and town councils, members of the public, interested groups. But what they will be asked to do is to submit their views on the council proposal direct to the Boundary Commission. So the Boundary Commission will receive council's size submission and anybody else's, which it will then consider. There's a format, a template for that submission, which picks up the areas I've talked about. And that process is then examined by the Boundary Commission between the period of March of next year and directly after the election, which is May of 2023. The Boundary Commission will then start its consultation on what it thinks is the appropriate finding that it's arrived at following the submissions that have been made to it. And it then also picks up what's called the warding pattern. So again, numbers, depending on the size, numbers and the size of those wards. So there's a long process, well, I say a long process, there's a detailed process that's undertaken. I will be putting a note out. I briefed group leaders on this earlier this evening, and I've been asked to produce a note, which I will send around to all members, in fact.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or comments from other members, particularly those who haven't spoken? Me.
Sorry, I've got a problem that I've lost you all. I can hear you, but I can't see you, which means asking questions. I'm sorry. Can I just ask one?
Please do, Megan.
Yeah, the independent review you talk about, Ian. Do you know how it's made up? Isn't it that descriptive?
The independent review of member allowances.
Yeah.
Yes, it's an independent chair, which I would be borrowing probably from Wakefield, and then a number of other outside members who will consider the information that's submitted to it, the current allowances that members have, taking into account submissions on workloads and a review of the work that's undertaken and the way in which we do it within Calderdale. Now, that will pick up on the previous review, which was undertaken some time ago, and just look to refresh that and taking into account inevitably increasing costs for everyone. Don't forget, it isn't a wage that you have, so it doesn't look at in that way, but it is reflecting the need to ensure that we have within Calderdale a representative view of our community, and that we encourage wherever possible individuals to stand as councillors, which again are reflective of the community within which they live. So all of those factors will be taken into account. So members will be able to make submissions to that panel as well, and I'll be looking for groups to do that if that's appropriate, which it will be, I'm sure. Okay.
Thank
Great.
you.
Thank you very much for that update, Ian. That was very informative. We move on then to item number 5, which is the appointment of a deputy chair for 22-23. Dave Young.
Thank you, Hilary. I'd like to nominate Jane Scullion as deputy chair.
Thank you. Are there any other nominations?
Can I nominate Jane Scullion, please?
Okay, that's 2. And any other nominations, please? Okay. So therefore, Val, you stuck your hand up. Sorry.
Sorry, Chair, I was putting my hand.
Oops.
Sorry, you're still muted, Val. Val, you're still muted. We can't hear you.
I was to second Councillor Young, but Councillor Swift also mentioned Councillor Scullion, so I'm assuming that their proposal is seconded.
Okay. Therefore, if there's no other nominations, Ian, do we need to formally vote, or can we just assume now that she's elected?
No, if you could just have a vote on that, please.
Okay,
Jane.
a show of hands, please.
My hand's up, it just doesn't show.
Thank you. Thank you. That looks to be anonymous. I can't see Mark or Mike Barnes.
And just for information, Councillor Swift, we can see you. So
Oh, right. Oh, well, I better behave then.
Okay.
that's why I mentioned it.
Okay. So we move on to item 6 then, which is the appointment of members to serve on the hearings panel for the coming year.
Yes, thank you, Chair. This is in fact, this and the next item are 2 standard items taken at this time of the cycle, and they are to this item is to reappoint councillors to the hearings panel should one be required. Last year we had Councillors Baker, Monteith and Councillor MK Swift, Parish Councillor Val Stevens and Mr Andrew Johnson. I'm hoping that, save for Councillor Baker, we will have nominations for the other 4 members to continue should they be content to do so. And I'm being waved at by Councillor Megan Swift.
Yeah, I'll come in when it's time. I wasn't trying to interrupt you. I just wanted to make sure you get lost.
And Mark, can you remind me, is Councillor Baker still on this committee? Do we have a Liberal Democrat member on it?
Bear me one moment. I'll find out for you now.
Actually, no, I've just answered my own question. We don't. So it doesn't have to be a Liberal Democrat. So we're looking for a replacement, well, subject to the other 4 members being content to be reappointed. We're looking for a another Calderdale councillor to put themselves forward to sit on the hearings panel.
Is Jane on it, Ian? Sorry, I'm sounding it right. So,
Okay, so Megan, if you want to ask a question, and then I'll bring Howard in.
right. I missed, and I didn't know whether we were approving another member. We'd already approved Councillor Scullion, because if not, I'd like to propose her.
Okay, technically, Chair, we don't have anybody proposed at the moment. I was just indicating what the position could be. The panel is to be reappointed or to be appointed. So we need to have someone propose that it reappoint the 4 members who remain on this committee. And my understanding is that Councillor Megan Swift has then nominated Councillor Scullion to be the 5th member. If someone could pick up the issue about nominating the other 4 as well, please.
Okay, so if I bring in Howard now, and then I'll bring Dave in.
Yeah, thank you, Hilary. I'm happy to nominate the 4 as Ian suggested. I'm equally, I was going to put myself forward, but equally more than happy for Jane to do it. I've got plenty on myself, so I'm more than happy to nominate Jane or second Jane, whatever the process is.
Thank you. Dave?
Yes, Howard's just seconded it, which I was going to do, so we can go to a vote, I think.
Okay.
Chair, can I just check that the other 4 members, that's Councillor Monteith, Councillor Stevens, Mr Johnson, yes, I'm getting an indication from Andrew, and Councillor Swift are content to be renominated. Councillor Monteith has a thumbs up, and a nodding from Councillor Stevens. Thank you, and thumb as well.
It's a very onerous task, Ian.
Yes, well, members behave themselves in Calderdale, we all know that. And Councillor Swift, you're okay to be renominated?
Yeah, I'm fine.
Thank you. So we can go to the vote.
Okay.
Chair?
All those in favour, please indicate.
That's enough, Chair. Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And then finally, we come to the review of the appointment of co-opted members and independent members to serve on the Standards Committee. And at this point, because that involves me, I declare an interest, and really I should hand over to Jane to chair this bit, but she's not here. So maybe could I hand over to Howard to chair this bit? Ian,
No.
agreed?
Yeah.
No.
Superb. If you don't want me to, that's fine equally, but I'm more than happy to just run this item through. So we've got a list of people already, haven't we, Ian? Is that correct? So can we?
Ian, do I need to leave the room or anything?
I think only if it becomes contentious, Chair. I don't think there's going to be too much of that. So
I will take your
I
advice.
fall into the same category, don't I?
You do, Councillor Stevens. So I think I'm anticipating that this isn't going to be at all a difficult decision.
I
So
can
yes.
turn my video off.
You might not get it back on.
I don't think there's any need for that. So I'm sure with Ian's guidance. So we've got nominated people already, and is that correct? Do you want to just name those people that are nominated?
Yes, we are looking to renominate Councillor Val Stevens as a co-opted member, Paul Beavers, Kathy Beavers, Andrew Johnson, and Reverend Canon Barber to undertake a further term of office as part of this committee.
Indeed. So I'd like to nominate those as going forward. So if I can have a seconder for those, please.
I'll second
Megan,
that.
yeah, excellent. And do we have any vacancies, Ian?
We do. We carry 3 vacancies. We've not sought to fill those in previous years, and we're not proposing to do the same again this year.
Okay, well, that ends that item. In that case, I do. But we go to a vote, I think, on that one. Yeah. So if we're all in favour of those nominations, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, perfect. Excellent. I shall hand back over to Hilary. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Howard. And thank you, everybody, for your attendance. I think that brings us to the end of the meeting. I'm not aware of any other business.